No.
I have high hopes for the future of Islam because the reverts, or those who are converting to Islam from the West, are bold enough to challenge the narrative. They're willing to push back against their own tafsir, their own commentators, even push back against the hadith, the authentic hadith. I mean, this is wild. They are putting themselves in a dangerous position, but they need to be commended for their boldness. Let's watch this revert share why the common narrative that has been accepted from the days of Muhammad till this day and is still promoted by actual Muslims who were born and raised into Islam and have studied it their whole life, why they are wrong, and this one revert is right.
Aisha, the mother of believers, may peace and blessings be upon her, was not 9. Let's talk about it. If you still believe that Aisha, the wife of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was 6 when married and 9 when the marriage was consummated, you've been sold a lie. And worse, it's a lie many in the Muslim community are too scared, too lazy, or too complicit to challenge. It's time to fix that. The claim goes like this. Aisha was 6 when she was married and 9 when the marriage consummated. This narration is found in a hadith reported by Hisham ibn Urwa through his father in Sahih Bukhari. That hadith became a weapon used by Islamophobes, anti-Muslim media, and even extremist groups to paint Islam as a religion that condones child marriage.
That passage says what it says. It says she was 9. So it's not used by Islamophobes. It's used by PDF file phobes. Like, I have a phobia of PDF files. I don't like them. I don't like them at all.
But here's what they're not telling you. That narration is historically inconsistent, weak in its context, and contradicted by far more reliable and realistic evidence.
Right. Personally, as a non-Muslim, I don't want your prophet to be a PDF file, to have done this to a 9-year-old. So I am willing to throw out all of the hadiths. I mean, they're not reliable anyways, to accept another narrative that she was much older. So let's agree, Muslims, Christians, let's all agree, the hadiths are a bunch of baloney.
I think a couple of videos that are talking about the age of Aisha radiallahu anha and trying to make a point about it. I don't really care about the conclusion. But what I care about here is the methodology being used and people being swayed by this for emotional reasons. So again, I'm not here to defend the age of Aisha. I'm here to defend correct hadith methodology.
Let's look at the evidence that Aisha was, in fact, 18 to 19 at the time of marriage and consummation.
Google and look up Yaqeen Institute, and they'll have articles that are pointing to some sources that they think point to her age being 18. But this is part of what's called revisionist history. The majority of traditional Sunni scholarship accept that hadith is authentic. Now, the reason why revisionists can claim that this hadith is weak is because in order for a hadith to be confirmed, there's a few criteria it has to meet. One of those criteria is that it can have no discrepancies. In other words, it can't contradict another stated fact, another reality. And so if they can prove that she was actually 18 with another source, then there's a discrepancy there, and that particular hadith should not be considered sahih. It should be called into question, even da'if if possible. The problem with that is when you go to the early tafsirs, the commentators, when you look across the board, when the process of the hadith were compiled 200 years after the life of Muhammad, there's no discrepancy. Nobody is contending with her age. Nobody refuted it. So for the majority of Islamic history, the majority of scholars accept her age being 9. Only the Shia, who don't accept the hadith as being authentic, and the Quran only guys, they actually can accept that, well, she probably wasn't 9 years old because we don't accept the hadith anyways. And so I would prefer to, go with the Shia and the, Quran only crowd there, but they have their own problems.
So here's the problem. People are saying that the age of Aisha only goes through Hisham ibn Urwa.
The marriage to the Prophet happened after Hijrah, placing her around 18 to 19. Aisha participated in the Battle of Badr and Uhud. The Prophet didn't allow anyone under 15 to fight or accompany. That alone places her above 15 during those early battles.
Again, I don't want her to be a minor. I mean, it's a really bad look on your Prophet. So I understand why you're trying to revise history. But again, that point doesn't stand because your Prophet allowed children to accompany soldiers to the battlefield, but not to fight. There's no documented source that says when she accompanied the soldiers to those battles that she fought. She might have carried water. She did what children do when you go to war, right? Why would you take a child to war? Anyways, you know what I mean. Like it's not supported. Again, it's conclusions you're making because you want her to be older, and so do I. I don't know. I don't want the guy to have taken this 9-year-old and doing what he did it. I get it, guys, but you can't skirt around it. It's an authentic hadith. You can't just come along as a, revert and say that your entire tradition of your interpretation, your exegetes, your scholars, your tafsir, your ustajas, that they're all wrong. Who are you? Like, who are you, honestly, to come along and call into question the entire Islamic faith? Back off, right? She was 9. And if you don't like it, You should have never reverted.
The 9-year-old story is very unrealistic and simply does not add up. So where did this lie come from? It came from Hisham ibn Urwa, a narrator who only reported this age in Iraq.
Problem. People are saying that the age of Aisha only goes through Hisham ibn Urwa.
Did this lie come from? It came from Hisham ibn Urwa.
Which is not true. There are two individuals that narrate from Aisha. One is Urwa ibn Zubair ibn al-Awam, who is a tabi'i. The second is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So again, the claim is this hadith only goes through Hisham ibn Urwa. So there is a chain of the hadith that contains Hisham ibn Urwa, but this is in Sunni ibn Majah, 1876, where Hisham heard it from his father Urwa, who heard from Aisha that her age is ... However, we also have a chain that does not conclude Hisham or his dad, where it goes strictly through Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh, and this is the hadith in Sunan ibn Majah 1877. So no Hisham, no Urwa, just Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. I don't know how this hadith is just like completely ignored.
So where did this lie come from? It came from Hisham ibn Urwa, a narrator who only reported this age in Iraq and not in Medina, where he spent most of his life. Major scholars like Malik ibn Anas, founder of the Maliki school, refused to accept hadith from Hisham after he moved to Iraq due to Hisham's memory decline. Ibn Hajar, al-Dhahabi, and many other scholars raised red flags about this exact narration.
And then we also have a version of the hadith in Sahih Muslim, where it doesn't go through Hisham, but only through his father, Urwa, and Urwa reports it to the famous hadith compiler, Zuhri. And there's no Hisham at all. So we have two hadith without Hisham. Now I want to come back to Hisham. Again, people are attacking Hisham because there's been this story told by certain Shias that he's not reliable, and the Sunnis made him up because they're trying to discredit the Ahlul Bayt and whatever. Just want to make it clear, Hisham ibn Urwa is an authentic narrator of hadith. Imam Muslim, in his Muqaddimah, his introduction to his Sahih Muslim, he said, if I find a hadith and it hasn't been narrated from Hisham or from Zuhri, it's probably not a hadith.
Yet somehow, one weak, unreliable narration became the dominant view, and many scholars regurgitate it blindly, not because it's true, but because challenging it would mean challenging the legacy of compilers, and for some, that's too uncomfortable.
You know better than that?
Okay? So, again, I'm not here to defend the age of Aisha. I'm here to defend proper hadith methodology. And when people say that this hadith is only narrated from this person, and if I catch that, I'm going to try to refute it, if I can, inshallah, if I have the knowledge. But for this hadith, I have spent a lot of time looking at this because Hisham is being attacked from many, many different sources. And then people say, well, you know what? Oh, let's use that and then get rid of this problem with Aisha's age. And that's just not cool. So when it comes to studying hadith, what we need to do is pull all the chains, all the matn, and then we can look at it. And people are basically just being selective here and dishonest and ignoring other companions that have narrated the hadith and other chains that don't contain Hisham. So with that, have a good night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Quran chapter 4 verse 6. Key words: marriageable age and sound judgment. That's mental maturity, not just hitting puberty and definitely not being a child. Marriage in Islam is a contract. You need consent, responsibility, emotional intelligence. You think a 9-year-old can handle that? It's time to stop parroting weak narrations and start defending truth with evidence, not dogma. Stop being afraid of the truth, because the truth, properly told, defends Islam better than 1,000 apologetics ever could. Challenge the lie. Educate your community. Let's put this weak hadith to rest for good.
Okay.